Hey there, Conncast here. I'm coming to you live with Black Swan Finance.
Bang, bang.
Today we're going to be talking about the petrodollar and a little bit of Federal Reserve red pills if we got time, if everybody's into that, if everything's still lit. So, considering you are the Black Swan Finance, what's gold at today?
Gold is doing pretty good today. It's at 1237, almost 1238, and it had a big rally today.
Yep.
Actually, I mean, no, I'm talking about more like in the past 24 hours, from just like $10. But you know, it's pretty stable. The price is it's pretty steady, and it's all to do with our favorite president, of course.
Yeah. No, it's great. How about silver?
Silver's doing solid as well.
That?
Oh yeah, we're pretty good. We're above $18, and
wow.
Yeah, we've been above $18 for like at least a week or maybe 2 weeks, a week and a half, and that is also again because they're tied together, as you know.
Yeah, I bought mine between 14 and 15, but I bought them a little over spot because they were Eagles.
American Silver Eagles.
Yeah.
The best.
Anyway. Yeah, I still like the. There's one country that does like Harambes, and I do want some of those, but yeah. They do silver gorillas. There's the maple leaves and the koalas, but there's one of them that does gorillas.
There's the koala. Yeah. I think Australia is doing something peculiar, right?
But anyways, Bitcoin, how's that doing?
Oh, that's like a dream, Bitcoin is going it's so solid, ever since 2017 started. It surpassed the $1,000 level, and we're still above $1,000. We're $1,061 at the moment.
Excellent. So
we're doing pretty good.
Not going to back down from 1,000 every time I ask.
Yeah, every time it just bounces back,
Yeah.
Right back.
Yeah, right back. Anyway, so let's get on to the main course, shall we? So, if you didn't know, the Federal Reserve of the United States is a private company separated from the government, but very firmly in bed with the government because it has to be.
Yeah.
And it issues unbacked currency in exchange for treasury notes to the U.S. government. So the U.S. government can, decide to borrow money from a private company that prints their money, essentially.
But it wasn't always unbacked, was it?
No, it was since the 1930s, I believe, right? Was when they started the Federal Reserve System.
Correct.
And before that, it was backed by, was it just gold or gold and silver? I know there was a big silver and gold back movement in the late 1800s.
But it was, but Nixon took the dollar out of silver in 71, though.
Yes. And also Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Japanese favorite president, made it illegal to carry around and perform transactions in gold. So there was that. And anyway, so that's just the primer. So it leaves the question, why does it even still have value if they continue printing it, if it's not backed by anything? Why is it that dollars have so much intrinsic value that the rest of the world has, since the 30s, decided to base their currency around that?
Enter the petrodollar.
Enter the petrodollar. Now, this has two different parts, and we're not going to go over them chronologically. We're just going to go over the basic idea of the petrodollar, and then I'll get into a little more context later on. So if you want to buy or sell oil as either a company or a country, or from a country or a company, it needs to be in the US dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And the US will go to lengths to enforce this. Now, many people think that the Iraq War was because of the 9/11. That's blue-pilled AF. Many people believe that they went to Iraq just for oil. We want to steal their oil or whatever. I remember when I was about 12 years old, I watched a Chris Rock stand-up routine. I think it was Chris Rock. It was one of those basketball American comedians. Yeah. And he was saying, well, we invaded Iraq and oil's more and gasoline's more expensive. If we invade KFC, chicken's getting real cheap at my house. But
Jesus Christ.
But anyway,
That's pretty good now.
Yeah, no, that just stands out in my memory.
But I remember that time when they were into that. So there was a lot of protests here in all around the world, and the slogan was "Blood for oil." That was the slogan.
Yeah, I still like the Russian slogan of bushel of wheat for a barrel of oil, but different times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so and isn't it wonderful how those protesters just magically disappeared when a new president got in, even though the president didn't really take any troops out everywhere, he just shuffled them around.
Foreign policy, that's right.
Yeah. No, it's just like magic. The president that can make protesters disappear. But anyways,
now we realize that a lot of those protesters are actually paid, and they use the agent provocateurs, all throughout the, I'd say the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe more.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't doubt it. And crisis actors as well.
Yeah.
But that being said, the US never wanted to take any oil from anybody. They wanted to buy oil. And they wanted everybody to buy oil in the same currency. Saddam Hussein, and this is public information, this isn't just like us foaming at the mouth. If you look into it, you can figure it out. We can cross-reference you. I'm not going to go through the trouble in the description or anything. But Saddam Hussein tried to sell oil in euros with his nationalized oil company. And the U.S. wasn't really jived to that. So send in the Marines. And that really is why the U.S. is required to mess around in Sandyland all the time.
That's right. Is the hegemony or hegemony?
Yeah.
To keep the established petrodollar in which transactions are made and gives the dollar the world's reserve currency status that it has.
Yes. And now that's actually being challenged by a few countries.
Correct. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And we've gone over this in other podcasts. And, you got BRICS. Hugo Chavez tried, and Muammar Gaddafi tried. Iran? I'm not familiar with, would that be the Ayatollah tried to do that, or?
Well, I mean, just recently. Let me see if it was Iran. Am I confusing it with Iraq?
I wouldn't think it's Iraq at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like the...
Oh, here it is. Iran to stop using US dollar on February 1st. It's on the news. Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely. Can we?
I have mentioned this before, but yeah, it's right there. No longer use the US dollar in official statements or for financial reporting. Yeah.
Hey, do you think we should invest in stocks for Kuwaiti reconstruction companies for after they have to rebuild Iran? Just saying, I'm putting this out there.
Well, that's actually smart, but I hope it doesn't get to that. But, if we study history, then probably it'll be that way.
No, I remember when I was 14, someone told me that either Iran or Pakistan would be the next people to try to do this.
To get out of the dollar?
Yeah, to get out of the dollar and try to break the hegemony.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's talks about attacking Iran, isn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of talks. I think Mad Dog Mattis is on board, actually.
Trump himself mentioned it, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it's already on its way. It's already on its way.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Now, back to petrodollar. It just boils down to, owning the world in exchange for really poor long-term thinking.
Yeah.
Because to have this kind of economic control over the world, you have to enforce what gives your money value or run out of money. Now, why did the entire world go on petrodollars or compared to petrodollars? A lot of it has to do with World War II. Yeah. And I'm not going to get into anything edgy.
Please don't.
Yes, no, I won't. No, but the US won, and they gave aid plans and enforced economic requirements on the countries taking those aid plans, such as Germany and the other allies as well, France, England, Italy, and those ended up being the industrial powers of the West once they rebuilt.
Right.
So they really had control over the free world at that point, and then Russia had the direct control, so there was sort of over their end, so it was a little bit of a balance of power. China's often forgotten in this sort of a talk, but a lot of it, I think, is because China doesn't have a lot of. My mind wants to speak Spanish right now. China doesn't have a lot of will to become the hegemon. I was going to say Ganos. Yeah, it doesn't have.
No, China is doing. It's isolated in a certain way.
Yeah, and they've always been very inwardly looking.
Yeah, even their culture is. I mean,
Yeah.
You talk about trying to incorporate yourself into the culture, and they won't allow you. They're very close. Yeah.
And once you look at their country, I mean, what do they have to the north of them? Mongolia. Mm-hmm. Are they going to invade Mongolia? And to the south of them, they've got some impassable jungles that have like a whole bunch of heroin and not much else.
Right. No, there's no business there. Well, if anything, they're coming to Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yeah,
and Macalgary.
There you go. Yeah.
Vancouver and Macalgary.
Yeah, Canada, basically.
Yeah. Well, Canada has a very attractive investment for citizenship program.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Quebec Real Estate Investors Program, I think it's called. But anyways, if anybody wants to jump into the chat board, we're watching it right now. I see we've got 2 viewers. We've got 2 right now. Any questions, comments? Let us know.
I just wanted to add real quick that, of course, the US dollar rose to the top because the US was not in ruins. All of Europe was recovering from World War II.
Yeah. If you ever looked at photos of Europe post-World War II, it's pretty much Haiti post-earthquake.
Of course, and the U.S. was in top shape, and the industry was blooming. It was the most powerful economy and of the entire planet at that time.
Yeah, there's an internet image macro called Old Economy Steve, and it's really just the result of that World War II, post-World War II economic dominance of the U.S. But works at a gas station, provides healthily for a family of 5.
Yeah. It was a different time. Yeah.
It was a different time, and in no small part because of that. Before that, in the 1800s, Victorian period, there were different currencies going around and different fiats going around when England was economically dominant. However, the international banks would issue bonds to lend money, and the bond rate on countries that were gold backed were less than half of the interest rate of those that were just fiats. So there was that hurdle to overcome if you had no gold in the coffers. And there was a large incentive to stay on gold, which did prevent a lot of the boom and bust cycle.
But that's smart. Do you know that there's another nation that just issued a message to its citizens? I mean, the central bank.
Yes.
Kyrgyzstan, did you read about it? I'm just trying to find out.
Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan?
No, Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, it just did that this week. They said they want every citizen to own like an ounce or two of gold, but that would mean that the country would be the number. If every citizen were to follow those instructions, that country would become the number 7 holder of gold in the entire world, with tons of gold.
That is fairly difficult actually too, because with Kyrgyzstan's standard of living, you're looking at like
sheeps. They trade in sheeps.
Yeah, 4 or 5 months of like industrial salary doing that.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very difficult, but we're seeing this.
It's a nice thought.
Yeah, probably a couple of them will actually follow, but I don't think it'll be significant. But however, it does point towards a new revival of gold.
No, most of the Central Asians I've interacted with are actually pretty woke.
Mm-hmm.
They saw, they were actually fairly devastated by the fall of the Soviet Union, more so than other Eastern Bloc countries, because they were before the Russians took it over. A lot of them were really just what we would today consider savages.
Mm-hmm.
So they built economies that were entirely dependent on Russia, either via agricultural or their industry. So they still have a large economic collapse in their conscious memory.
Yeah, they know what it's all about. And look, I found the headline. It says Kyrgyzstan's central bank urges citizens to own gold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's nice seeing. I'm surprised there's actually a banker in the world that cares about the plebs. Central
bank, and not only that, there's also what was his new movement in gold? I just forgot, but it'll come back to me.
We've got 4 watching now.
Right. Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions?
No? Okay.
We're on the chat bar. Oh, okay. Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. There have been experiments done with other backs of currencies, including labor-backed currency. There's been just pure fiats a la Zimbabwe, where everybody's a billionaire. And of course, there's been the petrodollar. But none of them really work in the same way that gold and silver do, because gold and silver have always had value. There's actually been, I believe towards the end, the Confederate States of America started issuing tobacco and cotton-backed currency.
Yeah, that didn't work. That didn't work.
Well,
no.
I mean, it goes bad.
Yeah, it has to endure the test of time. And that's one of the properties of real, actual money. And it has to have an intrinsic value as well.
One of the main arguments against gold-based money is Spain post exploration, height of the Spanish Empire.
Yeah,
there was so much inflation under gold that it was difficult to live. But I don't foresee that even being able to happen ever again.
Right. No, I
Unless, of
mean,
course, I mean, there
yeah.
may be something like that if we switch to gold-backed currency right before the asteroid mining boom. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. It'll have to
we'll
be
see
of
what
that
Flaming Road
magnitude.
goes.
It'd have to be like interspace,
Yeah,
spatial for it to be so huge that it has such an impact. But right now
yeah,
we're actually running out of it. The production is it's on the decline actually, and there's not enough
yeah.
supply.
And we've been on the podcast before and talked about how a lot of this, as well as the rare earth metals. I'm assuming that some people are going to watch this that don't want to go through all my podcasts, but this gold and rare earth metals that are in cell phones and electronics and laptops and solar panels and all that really isn't reclaimable. There isn't much of it, but it adds up.
Oh, it adds up really quick, and yeah, you're right. It's not recoverable.
Yeah,
It's basically it's in the
yeah.
garbage, and you cannot
No, I mean,
separate them.
I've owned 4 or 5 cell phones over the course of my life,
Yeah,
and I think that's on the low end.
it
But
is.
I mean, those 4 cell phones that I'm no longer using, they've got gold in them. They've got all kinds of.
They got silver as well.
They've got silver in them, of course. They've got different kinds of rare magnetics that were mined either in Africa on rare occasions, but usually China, that are never going to be recovered, and there's no economic way to recover them. A lot of people do forget that gold and silver are industrial metals as well.
Yeah, especially silver.
So not only do you have value, perceived value, but you also have demand value coming up as well.
Yeah, it's monetary and industrial.
Yes. So basically, to recap, the petrodollar helped give the U.S. hegemony over basically the entire world, and it has helped make their sanctions make or break nations. However, it was set up in a way that was poorly planned in a long-term thinking perspective that requires them to enforce their will in any oil-producing nation on Earth, which will inevitably lead to, I hate to say it, but the fall of Rome.
I was going to mention that look at what happened in Rome. It's the currency started to it was a crisis of currency, and
Yeah,
not
they had
only that, but also unfounded liabilities. Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, it's a crisis of currency, and also they got to the point where they're mercenaries, the Roman Blackwater, if you will, didn't even take Roman currency anymore.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
They said, okay, yeah, this is 1% gold. We actually want real gold, or we're gonna take you over.
They started to clip the coins.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, even when the Roman currency was watered down to all nothingness, the Roman government, running out of money to pay all their mercenaries, enforced a tax on merchants that they had to pay in gold.
There you go again. Well, I was listening to Alan Greenspan yesterday, and I think it was a recent interview, or I don't know if it was recent, but maybe a few years ago. I got to make sure, but still, what he was saying, and I've read it before. He was saying that gold is currency. He just said it like that. He says gold is currency, and he wishes that at some point we would go to some kind of gold standard.
Yeah, well, it's lovely how people that are in powerful positions really like to talk about this after they're in powerful positions.
Oh yeah, he never talked about it when he was in the Federal Reserve. He talked about
when the Federal Reserve was paying him multi-millions a year plus kickbacks. I mean, of course you're not going to say anything, but
But I'm really glad that he's talking about it. At least he's not just like he would, if he were to close his mouth and never open it again. about these subjects. Then, but the fact that he says it, it's just it's encouraging.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it is a brave thing to do. I don't devalue what Alan Greenspan has done and continuing to talk about it, especially with all the double bullet back of the head suicides that are happening lately.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen to him. I think I don't know. I've heard many things. That he feels like he wants to help people, but I don't think that they would do that to him. I mean, he's Alan Greenspan.
Yeah. Anyways, we've been streaming it for 25 minutes. I think we should keep this short. It's been a great podcast, and I hope to see you again here soon. Thanks for tuning in, audience. Thanks for tuning in, Black Swan. And I'll see you next video, next podcast, whenever that may be.
All right.